In this marriage series this morning, we're going to talk about the differences between men and women. Understanding the difference. This morning, we'll start with the wife. Okay, women first. Ladies, my desire this morning is to help you and to help us guys. I told first service, it's really difficult. This marriage series has really been hard because, see, it's not the preaching that I mind to you. I can preach to you and it's fine, but I got to go home and live this stuff with my wife. So adds a little extra pressure on that. But let's start with Ephesians. We're going to read our scriptures, and I just want to jump into it and see what the Word of God has to say. Begin with Ephesians 5, verse 25 through 30. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of the water by the word, that he might present her to himself. That's a great phrase. A glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, of his bones. And then from 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter, verse 7. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way. Not very politically correct here, as someone weaker, since she is a woman. Amen. PC. Politically correct, we're not. But this is the word of God. And show her honor as a fellow heir of grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. I've always struggled with that, the weaker sex. I was with my wife during childbirth. There's no way you're the weaker sex. I just can't imagine. As we think through these scriptures, I want to throw out a few thoughts of introduction. There's a book for leaders called Strategies for Taking Charge. It's by Warren Bennis and Bert Nannis. And I haven't read the whole book. I've only read excerpts because I was looking for specific things. This book on leadership, it's not about marriage. It's a study of the 90 top CEOs in the United States. And they studied these CEOs to find out what were the common denominators of those who rise to the top. Most of them in the study was specifically men for a purpose. They studied 90 top CEOs, business, entertainment, television, politics, sports. They found they had nothing in common when it comes to background, ability, and education. They only found one common denominator in all 90 CEOs. They were all still married to their first wife. They all claimed to be happily married, and they were all enthusiastic about the institution of marriage. And they concluded in this study that the stability that takes place when a husband and a wife have a good relationship is one of the factors of success. That was written by secular world, not by the church. 1 Corinthians 7 verse 3 in the Good News Translation says, a man should fulfill his duty as a husband, and a wife should fulfill her duty as a wife, and each should satisfy the other's needs. Meeting your spouse's needs is the purpose of marriage. God expects a husband to satisfy the needs of his wife. He expects the wife to satisfy the needs of the husbands. The problem is, if we haven't noticed, the needs of men and women are very different. Your wife's needs are not the same as yours, men. And if you try to meet your wife's needs thinking, this is what I need, you're going to miss it. You won't even make it to first base. You'll get thrown out before you even leave home plate. Sigmund Freud said, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, I have yet to be able to answer the great question, what does a woman want? And if Freud asked that and couldn't answer it, who are we to ask that? Well, we're going to look at 4 basic needs of a woman or a wife this morning. Coming from 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter, verse 7. We're going to start with that first. It says, husbands, it says this, husbands in the same way. Now, I jumped into this passage because I was looking for passages on marriage. So when I got to that, it says in the same way, I had to see what he meant in the same way. And I noticed that The previous passage, the first part of chapter 3, said wives in the same way. So I had to go back to the second chapter. And in the second chapter, it's all about describing what Jesus did for us. Let's start with verse 16. I think the screen isn't on there, so I'm having trouble to make sure I'm with everybody. Second chapter, it says, live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. Honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king, honor the emperor. Servants, be subject to your masters with all respect, not only to the good and gentle ones, but also to the unjust. For this is a gracious thing when, mindful of God, one endures sorrows while suffering unjustly. For what credit is it if when you sin and are beaten for it, you endure? But when, if you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this is a gracious thing in the sight of God. For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. So when he says in the same way, what is it that he is implying? Well, this is what I sensed. Just as Christ suffered in order to bring us into oneness with his Father, suffering brought about a great thing, then we need to understand in the same way, in this earthly realm, we're going to suffer to bring about the good things that God wants us to walk through. And the good things that he wants to bring to this earth and to this culture. Now, we're studying Scripture, and you'll remember there's times when we'll say, some people will say, well, that's too churchy. Well, this is a church. So we're going to be talking about churchy things. We're going to be talking about what the Word of God says. And this church is learning not to look at Scripture through the eyes of culture. We're learning to look at the culture through the eyes of Scripture. So some of the things that we'll be saying might not be politically correct. It might not sound good outside the world of corporate Christianity, but it's what the Word of God says. When he's talking about in the same way, he's talking about servants and masters. That's employers, employees. You understand sometimes there's going to be suffering that takes place to take the gospel into the workplace. In our government, it might not always go well. There's going to be suffering to take the goodness of God into the culture, and we have to understand that. He told wives, in the same way, the suffering that you might go through in parts of your marriage in trying to bring oneness together, it's for a good thing and it's for a good purpose. Husbands, in the same way, this is going to cost you something. It's going to hurt you a little bit, but the outcome is going to be incredible blessing and incredible joy that God gives to us. Live with your wives in an understanding way as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. In other words, he's saying, you do these things, gentlemen, and your prayers will not be hindered. It's interesting that the Bible says how I treat my wife is directly proportionate to the way my prayers are answered. I thought there would be more amens from wives than that, but that's what it says. My ability to have my prayers answered is directly proportionate and relatable to the way I treat my wife and the relationship I have with my wife. And he's saying if you do these things so that nothing will hinder your prayers. Now, as a husband, 1 Peter 3:7 says there's three things that I do with and for my wife. And this is what Peter says. We're going to hit these real briefly because I want to get to the needs. Peter says, first of all, we live with our wives. You're going, duh, that's a given, isn't it? We marry them because we're going to live with them. But when we think live with them, men, we think just sleep with them and eat with them. The rest of it's up in the air. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about live with your wives. Live life with your wife. You're going to develop a friendship. You're going to develop lifestyle together. There's things that you have to do together. Live with means share my life with, becoming companions. Now here's the problem, guys. We tend to compartmentalize things. We have our work life. We have our home life. We have our fishing life. We have our hunting life. We have our hobby life. We have our nothing box. Remember? And we compartmentalize everything that we do. So obviously, we just have to understand that the Bible says we're supposed to live our lives with our wives. They are supposed to know about all of our compartments. We're supposed to be, remember we talked about, we're supposed to be an open book to our wives. And our wives are supposed to be an open book to us. We're to share our lives, not just the bed and the meal. Secondly, he says, understand my wife. One translation says, live with your wife with consideration. That means you give it thought. To give it thought, consideration, obviously, you've got to understand your wife's needs before you can consider her needs and meet those needs. You've got to understand her. Now, I bombed on this joke the first time I used it several months ago on Wednesday night. I'll try to nail it this time. But a man was in his backyard and he was going through some stuff and he found this old lamp and he rubbed the lamp and this genie popped out of the lamp. And the genie said, thank you for freeing me. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you any one thing that you want. You name it, it's yours. And the guy said, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, but I hate heights, so I don't want to fly. And I really am uncomfortable on a boat because it might sink and there's sharks and all that other stuff. What I would like for you to do for me is I'd like for you to build a highway from the coast of California to Hawaii. Because I'm comfortable in the car, I'm comfortable driving. And the genie said, that's kind of a waste of materials. It's, manpower, all this other stuff. Tell you what, anything, you just name it. Anything else you want, it's yours. He said, well, I do have something else really been bothering me. I haven't been married all that long, and I'm having real trouble understanding my wife. It's a real difficult thing for me. I can't understand how she thinks, why she thinks the way she does. So for my next offer, I want you to help me understand my wife. Jeannie stood there for a minute and he said, do you want that in 2 lanes or 4? We're different. Men and women are different. And in some ways we can say, vive la différence, and we love that, but we are so different. But we're supposed to live with one another and have consideration for one another. We have to understand it's a lifelong process. Every day, it seems, I begin to discover, understand something new about my wife. Women are very complex. You open up one door, there's another door. You open up that door, there's another door. And it's not even a screen or a glass. You have to actually open it to look in it to see what is in there. I told first service, men are like flatboats on the water. Women are like ocean liners. I mean, they have like 14 decks, and they can operate on any one of those decks at any time they want to, and sometimes even at the same time. Men just don't seem to be able to do that. So it's really difficult for us to reach the point to understand our wives, but Peter says, live with them with understanding. So that's one of our goals, understand our wife. Thirdly, he says, respect my wife. Study after study has shown that the number one determining factor in a wife's self-esteem, how she feels about herself, is the response of her husband to her. That is, a woman largely gets how she feels about herself if she's married from her husband. You help her determine, men, how she feels about herself. How we speak to her, how we treat her, how we feel about her. I am to honor my wife, value her, appreciate her. Now, in the business world, what does appreciation mean? It means it grows in value. What happens when we depreciate? Lessens in value. Every time you appreciate your wife, you make her more valuable to you. My wife is much more valuable to me today than she was 15 years ago. Learning to appreciate. The more I appreciate, the more I raise her value. Now, men have basic needs. Women have basic needs. We're starting with the women. Ladies first. Next week, it's the men's turn. But men, pay attention this morning. And again, I have to live this at home, so pray for me while I preach. Here's the thing. If you married someone normal, they're not like you. That doesn't sound too good, but when I first saw Michelle in college, I saw her and I thought she was the most attractive woman in the world, still do. But once we got to know each other, I thought she was weird. I thought she was a little strange. But the reason she was strange was, now you got to get this, the reason she was strange was because she was not like me. Let's face it, the way we think, we are the epicenter of normal. And we base everybody else's normalcy upon us. And if you're not like us, then you're not normal. Because normal is who I am in our own minds. That's who we think. We are the epicenter of normal. And here's something that's been bugging me. It's as if most people take the energy that God gave us to love each other, and we use that energy to try to change each other. He gave us the energy to love one another as husband and wife, but instead of using that energy to love them, we use that energy to try to change them. But why do we want to change them? Because God made them different from us on purpose. It was intentional for him to make a woman and a man different, more than just for procreation. He made us different because when he cut Adam open, took her Eve out, and closed up the flesh, the cutting, the suffering that took place was so that the two could become one. Our wife, our husband, should complete us. They should bring parts to us that we don't have. It is a completion. It is I need you and you need me in this marriage relationship. It is a togetherness thing. In Christian marriage, it is a win-win situation because in a Christian marriage, the husband is to put his wife first and the wife is to put her husband first. That's a win-win situation. If you're in a bad marriage, it's because you are rejecting the inherent differences. And let me say this. This is what one psychologist said. When you reject my needs, you reject me. If I keep telling you what my needs are and you reject that and you reject that, then you are rejecting me. It feels like a rejection because it is rejection. What we are really saying to each other is what I'm telling you, when I'm telling you what my needs are, believe me. I'm not trying to use you. I'm not trying to manipulate. I'm trying to be honest with you. We need to be able to be honest with one another. Now, from my study, here are 4 basic needs of a woman. And this is from study, okay? So I got graded a little bit after first service. I hope you're as gracious as they were. Need number 1, my wife needs security. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, but if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, worse than an infidel. Notice the Holy Spirit tells us if anyone. Now, anyone as a word, could that be male or female? Yes, but how do we know he's talking to men? Because at the end of this sentence, he says, if anyone does not take care of his masculine. He's talking to the husbands. He's talking to the men. You are to be the provider, protector for your family. And he says, if you're not providing, if you're not protecting, if you're not meeting that need, then you're worse than an unbeliever. It's a man's responsibility to give his wife security. Financially, emotionally, in every aspect. Our call from God is to give our spouse security. And I'm going to say this as lovingly as I know how to say it, but men, if you got married because you want a mother, you should have stayed at home. Or you should have found some older woman who would adopt you. You don't get married in order to have a mother. You do not get married in order to have somebody be your chief cook and bottle washer and feed you and take care of you. Biblically speaking, if you consider yourself to be a Christian, both Old and New Testament, if you consider yourself a believer, your responsibility in getting married is to take care of, provide for, and protect your spouse. That is your God-given responsibility. And a woman's first need is for security. God created men to be the provider, protector, and that's the true, listen guys, that's the true necessity of testosterone. It's not simply to mate, not simply to have sex. The primary purpose God gave testosterone to a man is to be the provider and the protector. He made us to be more aggressive so that we would be the provider, so that we would be the protector. Ephesians says, love your wife as Christ loved the church and laid down his life for her. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us because he wanted to protect us and because he wanted to provide for us. And he laid it down. It wasn't just his death. He left heaven, became a man, lived as a man so that he could help us know how to fulfill our relationship. We had a conversation with a couple yesterday, and the primary reason that marriage is so high in God's regard, it's not that there's a grading level for sin, But the reason marriage is so high on God's picture and on God's scale is because he used marriage to be a picture of Christ and the church. There's nothing more precious, there's nothing more special to the Lord God than his son and his son's bride, Christ and the church. And that's why marriage is so important, and that's why marriage is under such attack today. It's to attack the heart of God. It's the enemy's way of attacking the heart of God. And as a church, as believers, we can't jump on that bandwagon. We have to go back to the Word of God. We don't look at the culture. We don't look at the Word through our culture. We look at the culture through the Word. And the Word says he created one man for one woman, male, one female for one lifetime. That's what God says. Well, Pastor, they had all kinds of wives in the Old Testament. That's why it's the Old Covenant. In the New Covenant, he states it very clearly. A man shall leave, Jesus re-uttered that. A man shall leave his father and mother, shall cleave unto his wife, feminine, and the two shall become one flesh. That's his purpose. And as God, creator, he guards that. And men, he wants us to guard our wives. The standard for women is respect for your husband. The standard for men is to give your life for her. Jimmy Evans, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's the leader of Marriage Today ministry, says, and I quote, "The mega need for men is honor and respect. The mega need for women is security. Women are most secure when there is a sacrificial, sensitive man that they are married to." And we men are going, what's that? Not sure what that is. Women feel most insecure when they are married to an insensitive and detached man. End of quote. You've been around husband and wife, men and women, when the husband speaks down to his wife, denigrates his wife, bashes his wife in front of others? You know the tension you feel there? It's multiplied on the heart of God. Now, I'm not the head of my home so I can get my way, have the big chair and the clicker that goes with it. That's not what the head of the home is. The head of the home says, I come second. I'm here to serve you. What you need comes first. What women need is security. And when they know they're secure is when they hear the husband say and live out, I will sacrifice to meet your needs. I will go without to make sure you have what you need. That is security. Number 2, my wife needs conversation with me. And this was a test for me this past weekend. You didn't have to laugh quite as quick as that. Years ago when I was in graduate school, and my kids think that was back before there was crust hardened, but in graduate school I did this study and I ran across a thing that they wired little boys and little girls with microphones to study. They were real young, kindergarten age, in that area. And they wired them so they could record the noises and stuff that they made. Here's what we discovered. 100% of the time, the noises coming out of a little girl's mouth had something to do with conversation. She was either talking with a friend, talking to her doll, or talking to herself. Does that ring a bell? I mean, my wife talks to herself a lot. Probably because I don't listen sometimes, but she talks to herself a lot. But that's what was happening in little girls. And all the noises little girls made had to do with conversations. And studies showed that women tend to talk to themselves more than men do, and women tend to talk with each other more than men do. It's a need. It's a need for women to be able to talk. For little boys, they discovered something different. Less than 30% of the noise coming out of a little boy's mouth had to do with conversation. The rest of the time, they were simply noises. You ever watch little boys play? They don't talk. It's kind of like Tim Allen. They just go, They just make noises. We don't know how to talk. And because of that, little girls have a better ability in conversing and communicating than little boys do. And the problem is, for us men, that becomes a lifelong habit. Your wife has a much greater need for conversation than you do. The biggest complaint I've heard through the years in my office in marriage counseling is my husband won't talk to me. I hear that at home at times too. Definition of conversation: is verbal attention. And men, when I ran across this definition, it really struck my heart. Verbal attention means he values what I have to say, so he's giving me attention. Proverbs 13:17 says, reliable communication permits progress, gives permission for progress to take place. So if we want to have progress in our marriages, men, we've got to learn to communicate. It's not a man's nature to sit around and just chew the fat intentionally. Women do it more than men do, and it's a basic need for your wife. It's her second greatest need. It's kind of like Mark Gungor said Wednesday night on the video. Women will watch movies of women sitting around the table talking and cry and laugh and weep through the whole thing. Men want to see things blow up and somebody get their head cut off. Boy, wasn't that cool? Did you see that? So, gentlemen, let me ask you. Well, let me tell you this first. And I'm learning this. It's a hard lesson for me to learn. Women don't want headlines. They don't want grunts and groans, and they don't want to hear nothing. What do you say when you come home and your wife says, she'll probably tell you what I say 9 times out of 10. When your wife says, how was your day? My standard response is, it was a day. It was a day. Would you meet with anybody? I met with Bob. How was Bob? Same Bob always is. She wants communication. And listen, guys, this is what I'm beginning to learn. After 43 years of marriage, I am a slow learner. Here's what I'm beginning to learn. This is how she connects with your world. Even more, this is how she connects with your heart. Let me tell you what I begin to think after 43 years, what she really wants to hear. She'll say, how was your day? At 5:32 a.m., I began to be conscious. Still had my eyes closed because I was a little emotional thinking about the meeting I was going to have with Bob. I mean, she wants all the details. And what's worse, she not only wants the details, she wants to know about my feelings. Why is communication so important? Let me share with you a direct quote from Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback Christian Church. Saddleback Church in California. Incredible thinker, great communicator. He says, this is how we think. If my wife needs to have conversation, she can have a bunch of girlfriends get together. The wife whose husband won't talk may think it's fine if she finds a friend to talk to her instead, and it will be okay, and it will meet that need. But that man is inadvertently undermining his marriage by losing the bonding that intimate conversation with her husband creates for her. Deep down, she knows if she is to feel one with him, he's got to talk to her. Let me tell you something, guys, complete honesty. That scares me spitless. Because I am really, I communicate up here, I communicate in my ministry, in my calling, but I am not a communicator outside of this place. I have to work at talking in other places. Jennifer was standing in the back door during first service, and I asked her, I said, my daughter's here, she knows. At home, and she just went, I am not real talkative at home. I'm just not, never have been. I need to learn to. And here's some of the things, I'm an introvert. It's hard for me to be intimate with anybody. I'm learning being married to Michelle because if Michelle has a decision to make or something to do like that, she comes to me and she wants to talk, and I found out she doesn't want me to make the decision. She don't want me to say, well, do this. That doesn't go over real well, just like the nail. It's a nail. See, you're not listening. Okay. And what I found out is, if she has to make a decision, she just wants to talk. The talk is the adventure. The talk is she needs that. And I find myself going, why do you need that? I hate to be that way, but that's what I think. She wants to talk about all the intricacies. She wants to talk about the various shades. She wants to talk about all the dimensions. She wants to talk about everything that's out there. But here's the thing. She isn't asking me to make the decision. She's sharing her life. She wants me to share my life with her and her life with me. And the act of conversation is meaningful to a woman. She's not looking for decisions. She's looking to connect. And here's the rub. For me, might not be the rub for you. I'm in this series. I'm learning to be honest completely. It's about time, Pastor. But here's the rub for me. My love language is doing. My love language isn't speaking. My love language is doing. My love language is serving. I'm the kind that I look to see if the garbage can is full, and I take it out. If there's dishes in the sink, I'll wash them. I'll help with the laundry. If she's busy doing something, I look for things to do to make the load easier for her. I'm a doer. I'm not a communicator like that. I'm a doer. I'm kind of like my dad. My dad was like that. My dad loved to hunt and fish, and he was a semi-pro baseball player, all that stuff. When my mom got cancer, my dad dropped all that stuff, and he was home all the time. He vacuumed, he did dishes, he did whatever he had to do, and that was my role model, so that has become my love language as well. I'm a doer. I'm not a communicator like that at home. I'm almost like the old Swede up in Minnesota who his wife says, "You never say you love me." And he said, "I told you 50 years ago when we got married that I loved you. If I change my mind, I'll let you know." Because some of us just aren't communicators like that. We're doers, or there's other things that we do to communicate our love language. My natural love language is to do. My natural go-to talking language is silence outside my work and my calling. I'm not a talker when left to myself, believe it or not. But if I'm at that point in doing this fresh new study, if I want to love my wife the way Christ loved the church, I'm going to have to learn to do that. And I'm not good at that. I found that this weekend. We were going somewhere, and she'll probably remember we were driving. She was asking me questions. And I finally just said, "Hon, I don't even know what you're asking. I don't understand what is it that I'm supposed to tell? I don't know." Duh. Conversation, man, it's one of her basic needs. Number 3, my wife needs non-sexual affection. Affection is the cement of a relationship. Affection symbolizes security, comfort, and approval. When a husband, the experts say, shows affection to his wife, you're sending a powerful message that says, "I care for you, I'll take care of you, I'll protect you, I'm concerned for your needs, I approve of you, I'm proud of you." Affection. Phillips' translation, Ephesians 5:28 says, "The love a man gives his wife is extending of his love for himself, to enfold her." We are to love our wives as we love ourselves. When we love our wife, we're actually loving ourselves because the Bible says we're one flesh. We've become one in God's eyes. Colossians 3:19, husbands, give your wives, notice this, give your wife much love and never treat them harshly. You need to circle that word much. The Amplified says it this way, be affectionate, sympathetic with them. See, as long as Jesus Christ is in your life, in first place in your life, you can never love your wife too much. You can never give your wife enough affection. The more you appreciate her, the more you love her, the more you show her affection, the more valuable she becomes. Now, here's the problem, guys, just to be totally honest. Men have a tendency to equate affection with sex. Jimmy Evans, I was listening to one of his teachings, and it just cracked me up because it reminded of me and some of the things in our early days. He said when he first started learning this early in his marriage, he said he determined for the Lord he was just going to be affectionate. Just not sexual, just affectionate. He walked over and he said, and started to sit down and put his arm around his wife, and he said he could see that look on her face that said, pervert alert, what's going to happen? He said she was probably expecting a wrestling match or sex or a combination of the two because that's what she was used to. But he just sat down, put his arm around her, patted her for a while, and just sat and talked with her for a little and got up and walked away. And she said, "Wait a minute." He said, "What?" He said, What did you just do?" He said, "I showed you affection. I'm practicing affection." And she said, "I like that." And his first thought was, "Oh no, now I've spoiled her." Affection is not foreplay, guys. Women need affection, and when we're in our moments, we know we need it too. I believe that any man can learn to be affectionate, and I'm talking to myself. If you say, I'm not affectionate, I never grew up in an affectionate home, I'll agree with that. Some of you did not grow up in an affectionate home. But listen, guys, we've learned a lot of things that we didn't learn at home. Haven't we? The scripture says, study your wife, pursue your wife. What does she like? What does she enjoy doing? How does she spend her days? And I hear guys going, I can't do that. And for some of you in this area, I can say it this way. No, you probably can't. But some of us studied our wives like we study that deer we want to bag, where they rut and where they do all the other stuff. If we studied our wives like we do those turkeys we want to kill, if we studied our wives like those favorite fishing holes and which lure to use, if we studied our wives the way we want to perfect our golf swing, we might be amazed how much we would learn about our wives. Don't tell me you can't study your wife. You study all that other stuff and you learn real well. Here's the question, is it a priority to you? If it's a priority, you'll do it. If it's not a priority, we'll make excuses. When we first start doing it, it feels a little awkward. All habits do. It seems awkward when we begin to try to be affectionate and do things differently. I've run across 4 ways in my study to show affection. So here they are. Number 1, show affection by my words. How I talk to her. Women need a steady diet of compliments. We men do too, if we'd be honest. But women need a steady diet of compliments, especially from their husbands. Keep her emotional tank full. Compliment her on how she looks. A pro at verbal communication and verbal affection was the writer Solomon in the Song of Songs, Song of Solomon. Now, his word pictures are kind of strange as we learned Wednesday night. You know, I don't know that Michelle would like to be told that her neck was like the ivory tower of Lebanon. You know, it had weird word pictures, but it worked for him then. All I'm saying is you read that, you see that he was good at verbal affection, at compliments, at telling her how wonderful she is, how wonderful she was. And we men need to think of fresh ways to express love. Secondly, by my actions, acts of kindness. You need to plan things that show you're thinking of her while you're not home. I'm not big on texting and all that stuff. I'm beginning to think devices have taken over our lives. 1 Corinthians 11:2 says that I don't want you to be ignorant about the devil's devices, and I think he's talking about some of these things. But texting is good. I'm trying to learn to text her something once in a while and say, thinking of you, and then I forget her. Just being honest, because I go back to work. But what I'm finding is when I start doing stuff like that, I have a harder time forgetting her and going on to other things. Leave her a note she'll find in the middle of the day. Call her up, just say I love you. These are things that some of us guys have a really tough time with, and I don't understand why, but we do. A proven, effective tool is cards. Women love cards. Women love cards. And some of us don't have the time to go in and get greeting cards. So, you know Valentine's Day's coming up, Mother's Day's coming up. What you need to do is when you go in and buy a birthday card, buy about 9 or 10 others. Don't make them all birthday cards because you'll get suspicious. But just pick up some thinking of you cards, some different little things, and just jot a note and leave them in different places. Women seem to like that things. Giving flowers is great. Do little things like that. If money's short, you might buy her just a little gift of something that'd really be useful, like maybe a new fishing pole or a new golf club or something that she can really use like that. Yeah. Here's what I learned early on in our marriage. When we were young in our marriage, Michelle would look at me and she said, I would like to go shopping. Will you go with me? And it was like, sure, no problem. We'd get to the store and I'd say, what is it that you want? I want a blouse. What color? Light blue. Okay. What style? Okay. What size? Okay. Men are hunters. And my attitude was, you wait right here, honey. I'll hunt that thing down and bag it for you. Bring it back. It'll be good. So I was real proud of myself. Went out, found the size, the style, the color, everything she wanted. I said, here it is, ready to go. I wonder how it would look with these slacks. And I'm going, you said you wanted a blouse. You didn't say anything about, what is this? You didn't say anything about slacks. And it got really frustrating for me. Well, I think Gary Smalley was the first one that said he understood, finally learned the lesson when his wife said she wanted to go shopping. She didn't want to go shopping. She wanted to go shopping. But let me give you a clue, guys. Here's what I learned. When I finally tried to study her and learn it, here's what I learned. I spent less money shopping with her than if I was the hunter for her. Because she wasn't going to buy, she was going for the experience. And part of the experience was just spending time together. And when I learned that, we spent time together and I saved money. It worked really well. So there's an ulterior motive for us, but just learning those things. Study your wife. Find out what your wife likes, what she doesn't like, and make it a priority in your life. Thirdly, by the way I touch her. It's a time-honored tradition. Holding hands is still a great thing to do, and my wife challenged me on that recently, because through the years with children and grandchildren and different things on the run all the time, I don't hold hands like I used to, and she's challenged me on that recently, and I've got to pay attention to that.
Have you seen these hands?
Yeah, I know. That's why I don't sometimes. I read yesterday that studies have been done that prove that a woman cannot get too many hugs. But here's the thing, gentlemen. They studied men as well. They did a survey through a life insurance company, and in the study, they found out that men who kiss their wives every day before they go to work have fewer accidents on the freeway. How they figured that out, I'll never know. They also discovered that men who kiss their wives the last thing before they go to bed at night live longer than other men. So here's a little hint. If you want to avoid an accident and live a long time, start your day and end your day with a kiss. That's what studies have said. Professional counselors say that the thing that they hear in most counseling sessions more than anything else is women saying, he only touches me when he wants sex. And at that point, I'm not interested. So you need to learn to give affectionate touch without having to go to the bedroom. Number 4, by focused attention. Boy, it got quiet. By focused attention. Look at her and genuinely listen. Nothing means more to a woman than to be listened to. And if men are honest, it's important to us too. It is saying, when you listen, you value her opinion. You value what she's talking about. And in our wife's mind, conversation is affection. Ephesians 5:29 says, for no man ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and protects, cherishes it as Christ does the church. You need to circle the word cherish if it's in your translation, because what does it mean to feel cherished? Cherished means the feeling that she is more important to me than anyone or anything else. And underneath Jesus, men, our wives need to be the number one person in our life. When you honor and value her, God smiles on you in that relationship. The problem is that men are achievement-oriented. The way we work is we set goals and we go for it. And once we've met that goal, we go for another one. Women are not destination-oriented. That's kind of a generic statement, but they're not, generally. That's why there's conflict on vacations. Oh, look at those. You're not stopping. No, I got to get to our destination. We got reservations, man. I have to get to the hotel. We have to get there. I don't know how many situations in counseling I've been in where the wife sits down and says, Pastor, I don't know what happened. While we were dating, we talked till midnight on the phone. We spent every waking hour together. We did everything together. Then we got married. And I never see him anymore. I understand. But don't get totally mad at the guy, because most men are raised. My dad, when I was a kid, if they went anywhere, he'd leave it, do this, do this, do this, do this. And it was important to me to check off the list. And men are that way. get out of high school, and it's like, am I going to go to school and college, or am I going to get a job? Am I going to pursue a career? And this is going to sound really bad, but getting married is on the checklist. It's on our list. I don't know whether it was Gary Smalley or James Dobson. One of the two made this statement. They said when men and women start dating, there is a chemical released in their brain that makes them totally brain dead. And you've probably been there yourself. You know, before you're married, while you're dating, the woman says, oh, he's got so many friends, he plays balls with it, he's so relational. I love the fact that he's so relational. After they get married, all he wants to do is play ball with his friends. He never spends time with me anymore. Before they get married, it's the guy going, man, she's a great house cleaner. She does this, she does that. After you're married, it's going, what are you doing, man? You folding my socks. You got them in there by color. You got my solid shirts, striped shirts, tech shirts, all this stuff. What are you trying to do to me? We're brain dead while we're dating. Things that we love while we're dating, once that chemical wears off, drives us nuts. I think it's part of God's plan that we'll marry the right person for the right reason. So don't get too upset at the guy, because that's the way we're wired. We go from one thing. It's not that he doesn't love you anymore. It's just, okay, I'm married now. We're going to have kids now. I got to get my career. I got to make money. I got to get a retirement. I got to get out there. It's not that he doesn't love you, but that's his way of showing he loves you, that he does that. But men, don't hide behind that as an excuse. Study your wives. Pursue your wives. Know what your wife likes. Make an effort to do the things that they need to have done in their life. I go back to that. The energy and the intensity that we were given to love our spouse is mostly used to try to change them. Don't encourage them. Fourth, final need, then I'll close. My wife needs my leadership. So how do I show leadership? Well, very simple. Number one, I'm going to show leadership by being faithful to my wife. It's pretty obvious. Proverbs 6:32 in the Living Bible says, he who commits adultery is an utter fool, for he destroys his own soul. And what we need to do as husbands is to communicate that to her. I'm going to be faithful to her. Hon, there's a lot of billboards out there. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. There's all this stuff out there. There's all these things in this culture that says it's okay. And the world says this stuff is okay. But I'm telling you as your husband, it's not okay. And I am going to be faithful to you. I am going to be faithful to you. Secondly, lead in the parenting. For those of us who don't have kids at home, hopefully we did that. Shell and I parented together. And the buck usually stopped with me. I was telling first service, I loved it when my dad did the discipline, because my mom hurt. Dad did it differently, but we need to be in this thing, and we need to be leading in parenting responsibilities. By far, the greatest way you as a father can help your wife is to assume responsibility for discipline. And fathers, don't overcorrect your children. Don't make it difficult for them to obey. Don't nag them. Love them. Treat them with respect. The thing that broke me with my dad, I think I've told this story, when I finally got my driver's license, well, not finally, because I passed my test the first time, but when I got my driver's license, we had our little talk about stuff, and my dad handed me the keys and said, there you go. And so I said, what time is my curfew? And Dad says, we're not giving you a curfew. And I went, yes. And then this killer statement, I'm not going to give you a curfew. We trust you. And we're going to trust you till you prove you can't be trusted. I walked out there going, this is great. And then I got to the car going, I think I just got had. Wow. What just took place? Don't nag them. But let me say this about wives too. I ran across this statement yesterday. If you want your wife to be a thoroughbred, don't treat her like a nag. Number 3, be the spiritual leader of your home. Ephesians 5:26 says, and you husbands show the same kind of love to your wives as Christ showed to the church when he died to make her holy and clean. Be the spiritual leader of your home. And being the leader of your home says, just like Christ did that for me, I will lay down my wants, my needs, my desires, my plans for you. Because you like he did for the church, you are the most important person in the world to me. And that's what it means to be a spiritual leader. It means you sacrifice yourself for your wife. Sacrifice is key. Many of you say, how can I be the spiritual leader in my home? My wife's been a Christian for years longer than I have. Listen, spiritual leadership isn't a matter of years or knowledge. It's an attitude. And I don't care if she's been a Christian for 30 years and you've only been a Christian for 1 or 2 days. God says you're the leader, so be the leader. And to be the leader, you just have to be one step ahead. Just lead. You don't have to be way out there ahead of her. You just have to lead. And the best way to say lead is to say, I've discovered finally, the best way to lead is take the initiative. Take the initiative. And here's some ideas in this past study that I've run across preparing for this message. And I'm going to give you a few things. And they're convicting for me as well. We were with a couple yesterday, and I told them, I don't know why it is. I'm just being transparent. I don't know why it is. One of the hardest things in the world for me to do is to pray with my wife. I don't know if there's something that makes me intimidated, because this woman is a prayer. I mean, it's a prayer. And she wants me to pray with her, and prayer means, leadership means just take the initiative, and I'm trying to learn to do that better. I usually go to bed before she does. She's got this nighttime DJ thing still in her system, so she has a hard time going to sleep at night. And I'm trying to learn, if I go to bed before she does, go and say, I'm getting ready to go to bed, let's pray. And I don't always do a good job of that, but I'm working on it. We were laughing with a couple last night because we did go to bed at the same time one night, and we prayed before we went. I prayed first. I did my 10-second staccato, this is prayer. She started praying, and she started laughing because in the middle of prayer, she heard me over there going, yeah. No. But pray together. Take the initiative. One of the things I ran across that I want to get us to try is take the initiative to memorize a Bible verse together, a verse a month. Just say, let's take this verse, let's memorize it, let's see how we can use it all month long. Take the initiative to read the Bible together. She reads her Bible all the time. She's always studying and working. I'm always studying and working. Well, it's time we stop doing that separately and do it together. All leadership means is you take the initiative. Worship team, come on up. Next week, we'll talk about the guys and what a man's basic need would be. Why don't you stand up while the worship team's getting in place? Just stand up. Here's what I want you to do. If you're standing next to your spouse, take her hand, his hand. Okay? Bow your head, close your eyes. While they're getting ready, here's what I want you to do. Just before the Lord, just go before the Lord in your own heart right now. And men, just ask God, Lord, I want to be a spiritual leader. Help me do that. I want to be a godly man. Help me do that. I want to be a man who loves my wife like you love me. Help me do that. And wives, you need to be praying for your husband, saying, Lord, make him a man after your own heart, but make me a woman who responds to him properly. Make me a woman who doesn't question him when he tries that, but encourage him when he tries that. Lord, show me as his spouse what I can do to encourage him in the steps that he takes. And Father, right now, as pastor here, I just ask that you would move over this body this morning, that you would speak to hearts, and that you'd begin to put a fire in our hearts that would just expand a love for you, a love for your kingdom, a love for your church, but a love for our spouse, a love for our family, a love for the body of Christ. Father, I continue to pray that marriages in this place will become so strong and so buoyant and so exciting that the community will look in and say, I want what they've got. I want what they are doing. I want to know what makes their life, their home, their marriage, their parenting such a joy. I want what they have. Father, make us the light on the hill that people look at and say, they have what I want, and what they want and what they need is you, Jesus. We bless you now, Father. Minister to our hearts at this time, Father. In Jesus' name.